Now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you're expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. What that is, that's that go-getter energy that moves anyone out there, including yourself, especially yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together in one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book, one show, this daily masterclass. If you didn't know the name of it, I'm about to tell you. It is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. Today's topic is how to formulate and present a logical argument. Now, this topic right here is a very important topic and a very useful topic for anyone out there who ever gets into a conversation with a person who does not see things the way that you see them, i.e., everyone. All right, you will be in a conversation at some point in your life with a person who does not agree with you, someone who does not see things the way you see them, someone who wants to verbally challenge you, someone who wants to question you, and sometimes you're going to hear somebody say something that doesn't make sense to you, and you're going to want to know why, but you may hesitate to say anything to that person, even though you don't agree with what they're saying, because you may not feel fully equipped or qualified to go back and forth with this individual, especially if they're very articulate and or very passionate and or they're just good with words. Because some people who are just good with words, they might not even form good arguments, but if they're better verbally than you, they have more verbal dexterity, they could kind of just talk circles around you, even though they're not making any sense, because it just sounds right. You ever dealt with a person like that? There are plenty of them out there. And on the other hand, you may not feel very comfortable just even expressing an opinion that you think may cause some people to be uncomfortable, because if they challenge you, you may not feel like you are fully equipped to defend yourself. So what I'm going to go over here today, I believe I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points I'm going to give you for how to formulate a logical, rational, reasonable, respectable, airtight argument. Now, when I say argument, I'm not talking about getting into a confrontation with people. When I say argument, I mean making a point that other people may be predisposed to disagree with, but making your argument, making your point in such a way that people can understand where you're coming from and why. It doesn't mean they're going to agree with you, but you are giving yourself as much chance as possible to be successful in getting people to at least understand you. That's what we're talking about here today. So let's get right into it. Point number one, the topic once again, how to formulate and present a logical argument. Number one, keep it simple. Most important thing you can do when you're making any type of argument, and understand when I say argument, that can just be a point that you're making that you want people to accept, something that you want people to hear. You just want people to listen to you. Keep things simple. Why do you want to keep things simple? Because this is how people remember what you're saying. Somebody could love every word that you say and say, damn, that person's a great speaker, so articulate, they can talk circles around anyone, they sound so good, they look so good while they're doing it. Problem is, they don't remember a damn thing that you said by the very next day. They don't remember anything you said 5 minutes later. How many of you can remember something that your teachers told you in college? How many of you can remember something your teacher told you in school just this past school year? Those of you who are in school, you probably can't remember a damn thing. And if you do, you remember like 1 or 2 things. You were in school every day. You remember like 1 thing. How is that possible? How many of you spent a whole year in school with a certain teacher and you don't remember not a single thing that teacher said the whole year? Not 1 thing. Why is this? It's because people fail to keep it simple. Do not ask people to accept 9 or 10 different ideas all at the same time. Human beings are not that smart. All right, you might be that smart, but everybody else is not that smart. Do not give people credit for being smarter than they actually are. All right, most people are not very bright. They're not very smart. They cannot comprehend things the way that you comprehend things, especially when you're the one who knows all the information and they don't. All right, so make sure you are allowing for the fact that you're the expert on this, whatever topic you're talking about. They're not experts. They don't know what you know, so don't expect them to have the information. They will not remember everything that you said. So if you can narrow everything down to one concept, that'd be great, and then you can have supporting points. But if you got to get more, don't work with anything more than 3s. 3s are pretty good for getting people to remember. Now today, I'm violating this by giving you 7 points, but usually, you listen to the show often enough, 95% of my content, I'm giving you 3 points every single day. Doesn't mean you're going to remember all of them, but they're easy for you to at least compartmentalize if you listen to it more than once or take notes. So look at campaign slogans or any type of business slogan. They usually focus on one main concept. They may tell you a bunch of things underneath the main concept, but there's one main concept that you can always remember and attach to that person. Barack Obama's campaign slogan was, "Yes, we can." That was his campaign slogan. Now, did he talk about a bunch of other things? Of course he did. But that was his slogan, yes, we can. What does that actually mean? Well, yes, we can what? He didn't say. He didn't have to say, because it gave everyone open space to fill in the rest of that sentence with whatever you wanted to fill it in with. That's why it worked. On the same hand, conversely, Donald Trump, not conversely, but conversely as far as politically, but by the exact same thing he did, make America great again. So people ask the question, his opponents will say things like, well, when was America great? The great thing about the slogan is he doesn't have to tell you when America was great. You can fill in the blank when you think it was great. And if you don't think it was great, you're probably not going to vote for him. But guess what? He won anyway. By the time you listen to this, maybe he's lost. Maybe he's won again. We don't know. But the slogan is great because there's one main idea. You can remember the idea. Even if you hate Donald Trump, you know what his main idea is. And that is good arguing. That's a good argument because you remember it, even if you hate it. Nike, just do it. Everybody knows Nike's slogan. Dre Baldwin's slogan is what? Everybody knows it. I don't even have to tell you what it is. Work on your game. Why? One main idea. Now, I got 1,700 masterclasses here. I've talked about 1,700 different things. But the main thing is work on your game. One idea, then you can have your little main idea details underneath that. When you are speaking to another person, keep your language basic enough that everyone can understand you. I'm not talking about the number of points. I'm talking about the words that you use. Do not talk over people's heads, i.e., do not use big words when simple words will do. Do not talk too fast for people to understand or comprehend you. And if you happen to be a fast talker, do something like have a YouTube channel or a podcast so that people can rewind and slow you down and they can hear you and understand what you said. If you tend to be a fast talker, don't do all your talking in person because people won't even understand what you said, let alone comprehend it, and they may be too embarrassed to tell you that you're talking too fast to understand what you said. Michael Eric Dyson is a great speaker. Those of you who haven't heard of him, he is an author. He's I guess we could call him somewhat of an influencer. He's more of an intellectual. I believe he works at, it's Georgetown University, but it might be a different university in the DC area. But I know he's a professor. He is an author. He's written several books. Black guy, very woke, very leftist, very supportive of any black mouthpieces out there who want to speak woke, leftist, social justice. He's all on that side, hard on that side. And this is not a criticism of him. This is a description of him. Any of you knows who he is, tell me if I'm lying about any of that. The reason I'm bringing up Michael Eric Dyson is because this guy is a really, really good speaker. He is very articulate. He can talk circles around anyone. He's the type of dude that you don't want to get in an argument with because he will just talk circles around you. Even if you have a stronger point, you'll feel like you lost because he's such a great talker. You ever know somebody like that? Michael Eric Dyson is that kind of guy. He is a great speaker, super articulate. The challenge that I have with Michael Eric Dyson, the reason I'm bringing him up is that he talks very fast and he uses very big words when he's talking that seem more, at times, it seems like he is more concerned with pleasing his own vanity than actually getting his point across. That is my criticism of Michael Eric Dyson. He seems like he's just trying to show off how great of a speaker he is rather than he's actually trying to get his point across to you. I've heard him actually brag about how great of a speaker he is when he's talking. I've heard him on the radio talking about this. Yeah, like I'm just surgical with this, the way that I talk and things like that, like bragging about it. It seems like he cares more about showing off how great of a talker he is than actually letting you understand what he's trying to say. And again, Michael Eric Dyson, if you hear this, you tell me I'm wrong about any of that. Any of you who's listening that's not Michael Eric Dyson, don't do this, okay? People will be impressed by your speaking skill, but they will be confused because they don't even remember what you said. They don't even understand what you were saying. You said it so fast that they can't think as fast as you can talk, which means you will fail because you didn't get your point across. And the whole point is getting your point across. Point number 2. Today's topic is how to formulate and present a logical, rational argument. Number 2, maintain emotional control. This is a really important one, especially when you are challenged. This usually doesn't come up when you're the only one talking and everyone's just listening to you. When you're giving a lecture, you don't really have to worry about maintaining emotional control. You kind of do, but you don't really. The biggest challenge to your emotional control is when people start challenging you, when they do not agree with you, when they don't see things the way that you see them, when they just don't want to go along with your point and they have a challenge to your point, and now you're going back and forth with another person, especially a person who may have some strong counterpoints to your points. Maybe some person who is challenging the things that you're saying, and maybe they're winning some points against you because they have some strong points to what you're saying. Maybe when someone is questioning what you're saying and you are struggling to answer their questions, you're struggling to justify your position. What happens to a lot of people, this happens all the time. I see it all the time when people are in their back and forth conversations, some of them that become arguments, is that they lose emotional control in the course of the conversation. This is a failure point of many people's arguments, losing emotional control, even when you have the stronger point, even when you are quote unquote right, even when you have all the right information and the other person is completely wrong. If you lose emotional control, you end up losing control of the conversation, and you're not able to get your point across as strongly as you wanted to, which means the spectators who are listening to that conversation may not quite understand what you were trying to get across because your emotions got in the way of your rationality and logic. Now, there are certain topics that this usually shows up. Losing emotional control, I'll tell you the topics to look out for when you're going to see this. Race, politics, and religion. Anytime the conversation is about those three things, race, politics, and religion, you will see people losing emotional control. Actually, here's what you're going to see. When the topic is race, politics, or religion, you'll see people who never had emotional control in the first place. They'll come into the conversation out of control because the topic is race. They're either defending or attacking a race, defending or attacking a certain political side, defending or attacking a certain religion without even listening to what the other side said. They are already emotionally unhinged. Here's the problem with being emotionally unhinged. Actually, first let me tell you the benefit of it. If you have fans and supporters who already agree with you, when you get emotionally unhinged, they will get even more excited and hyped up by your unhinging emotionally. However, if you are emotionally unhinged and you are in a conversation with someone who has control of their emotions and also has a solid argument to make and they understand this point, inherently, if not literally, they will pick you apart. They will use this against you. Okay, when you become emotionally unhinged, you lose access to all of your skills. You lose access to your objectivity. You lose access to your rationality, and you're not able to think clearly. Therefore, when someone presents you with something, they say something to you, they ask you something, they say something that you weren't expecting, you aren't prepared to deal with it. And again, if you're talking to an audience in front of an audience of people who already support you, they will just support you even if you're looking like and sounding like a fool. But if you're talking in front of an audience of people who are objectively just observing you and just listening for the quality of your argument and deciding based off that, and you lose emotional control, you will lose that audience. They're going to be looking at you like, all right, this person obviously can't even make a solid argument. And even though you may have a better argument, you can't make it because you can't control yourself emotionally. Ladies and gentlemen, remember that 90% of communication is nonverbal, or 85% or 99%, whatever the number is. A lot of it is nonverbal. It is not what you say, it is how you say it. Therefore, when you lose control of yourself in the midst of an argument, and I don't mean an argument like back and forth confrontation, but I could mean that. When I say argument here, I'm just talking about you making a case against someone else's case. It doesn't have to be confrontational. But when you lose emotional control in the midst of an argument, it is how you're saying things that will cause people to be turned off by you. It is not what you are saying, okay? So make sure you are maintaining your emotional control. I've done several master classes on the concept of maintaining emotional control. Let me tell you what those are so that I'm not just leaving you in the lurch here trying to figure out how to do this. Masterclass number 560. You are in the emotional management business. Masterclass number 447. How to keep your emotions in check when the stakes are high. And masterclass number 259, aligning your emotion with your knowledge. So I'm not telling you to turn your emotions off. I'm saying control them. There's a difference between turning something off and controlling. There's a difference between controlling a vehicle and putting the vehicle in park and turning off the ignition, right? All right? You can control a vehicle and still have it moving forward. Now, if you just turn the vehicle off completely, then you're not going anywhere. So understand the difference between those two. I'm not telling you not be emotional. You're a human being. But control that emotion and channel it into positive, logical conversation for this particular topic when we're talking about building an argument. So if this happens, you lose emotional control and your adversary is a skilled individual, they will use your emotion against you and they will pick you apart using the very tool that you have maybe been conditioned to believe makes you stronger is actually going to make you weaker. They will use it against you and pick you apart because you are out of control. This happens in sports. When an athlete gets out of control emotionally, they end up losing if you're going against another pro. In any type of debate or argument, this happens when people lose control. They don't have access to all of their skills. This happens in the business world. If you make a business decision emotionally rather than logically and rationally, you're probably going to end up running into a brick wall or destroying your business or falling off of a cliff. That's why you got to make sure you have checks and balances in place for all of these things and make sure your emotions remain under control. Point number 3. Today's topic is how to present a logical and rational, formulate and present a logical and rational argument. Number 3. Here's where you take your opponent's feet out from under them. Acknowledge the strong points of your opponent's argument. Yes, acknowledge the strength of your opponent's argument. So here's where most arguments fall apart by most people. Most people, when they are presenting an argument, they fall apart here at point number 3, not because they don't know how to do point number 3, is because they don't want to even engage in point number 3. They don't even want to consider point number 3. And this is especially true of people who cannot control their emotions. All right, these go hand in hand. Point number 2 and point number 3, they go hand in hand. What you must do is acknowledge what your opponent is good at. Acknowledge what points your opponent is making that works in their favor. This is what, people who can't control their emotions, they never succeed at doing this because they are not willing or able to give any credit to anyone with whom they disagree. Back in 2016, when the presidential election debates were going on, there was a guy who came up during one of the debates between Hillary and Trump, and he said, "Can each of you say something positive about the other one?" And people loved this. The guy went viral the next day simply because both of these candidates have been doing so much, throwing so much nastiness at each other through their campaigning that neither of them could say anything positive about other people. But then they both had to fish and find something to say right there on the stage. And the whole point is this: you must learn how to do this. You must learn how to, first of all, when you can maintain your emotional control, it'll be easy for you to do this. It'll be easy for you to say, you know what, you have good points here, 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 and here. And you can point them out and you can give credit to those good points. Or if you're in the sports world, don't go into a sports game looking at your opponent and say, my opponent's a complete bum, they're terrible at everything, I'm better than them at every possible skill, there's no way they can beat me. All right, that's how you end up getting beat. All right, in the boxing world, any type of combat sport, MMA, boxing, kickboxing, you go into a match not giving your opponent credit for anything, or you can get your ass knocked out. Or you might end up in a hospital, leaving the arena on a gurney. Or if you go in there not giving your opponent any credit. Make sure you are giving your opponent credit for what they can do, because the very thing that you underestimate or you refuse to give credit to will be the very thing that beats you. And here's the thing that you got to understand. When you acknowledge the strong points of your opponent, especially when we're talking about verbal back and forths, when you acknowledge their strong points, now you are taking those arguments away from them. You're basically taking all of their bullets out of their gun because you are acknowledging those points before they even get to use them. So they can't even use them offensively because you use them before they even get to bring them up. And then you ever saw the movie 8 Mile with Eminem acting in it, you remember what happened at the end of the movie. If you didn't see the movie, I will briefly paint the picture. In the movie, Eminem plays this, I don't remember his regular name in the movie, but his rap name was Bunny Rabbit. That was his rap name. And in this movie, he's like an aspiring rapper. He wants to do his thing rapping. The problem is he's from this dead-end city where there's not a whole lot of opportunity. He does rap on the side at these rap events every weekend and things like that, but it's very local. There's not any widespread exposure that comes from it. He's working at this dead-end job at like a car factory. The people who work there are all pretty much dead end as well. He lives in a trailer with his mom. He has nothing positive going on for him. He has a girlfriend, but she's kind of a bum. He has a kid, and he's barely making enough money to support her. He wants to do something with his life, but he can't see any way out of this dead end situation that he is living in. So he goes up to these rap battles every week, and this is his only outlet for something positive in his life. But what happens is every time he gets on a mic to battle, oftentimes he freezes up. He has performance anxiety. He can't even say his raps, even though a bunch of his friends know that he's a really good rapper, because he's great rapping when he's just with his friends. But when he gets on the mic, all of a sudden he doesn't have, all of his skills go away. He loses emotional control. So losing emotional control is not just you going from 0 to 100. It could be you going from 100 to 0, or not having anything, which is what happens to Eminem / B Rabbit in this movie 8 Mile. So he has these guys who are also rappers, who are a little bit more known locally, who he has a confrontation with. He has a rivalry with these guys. He doesn't like them. They don't like him. One of the guys in the group ends up having sex with Eminem's girlfriend in the movie. So Eminem's feeling like a jerk, like, man, this dude who is my rival had sex with my girlfriend, and everybody knows about it. And what happens is, in the penultimate scene of the movie, Eminem is battling against this same guy who's his rival, who has sex with his girl. They don't like each other. They hate each other. They're both rappers. And this other guy knows that Eminem has this habit of freezing up on the mic. And coming into the battle, you can see it in this opponent's face. And this opponent's a black guy. Eminem, if you didn't know, he's white. They're about to battle each other. And you can read it on the face of the opponent, the black guy, that he already has all the ammo he needs to destroy Eminem in this battle. I'm gonna talk about your background. I'm gonna talk about your mom being a drug addict. I'm gonna talk about the trailer park you live in. I'm gonna talk about how I had sex with your girl, how you never are good at rapping. You're not going anywhere rapping. You're a bum. You're a dead end dude going nowhere. You can read it in the black guy's face. He's gonna use all his ammunition against Eminem. So Eminem in rap battle, and the way it goes is a coin flip. Who has to go first? Who gets to go last? Going last is usually the more beneficial position because you get to hear what the other guy said first. So Eminem has to go first. So he's standing there on the mic, and all of a sudden he loses his performance anxiety. He starts performing. And in his rap, here's what he does. He takes all the negative things that his opponent is probably going to say about him, and he says them for the guy. He says them. He said, yeah, I live in a trailer park. Yeah, I work at this car shop. Yeah, you had sex with my girl. Yeah, no, my mom ain't about nothing. Yeah, I got all the bad things you could possibly say about him that everybody already knew. He said them first in his rap. And then he finished his rap and said whatever he could say about the other guy. He didn't have as much ammo, but he still said what he needed to say. Then it's the other guy's turn. All right, Eminem's time is up. It's the other guy's turn to say his rap, and then the audience will decide who won the battle. This is the way the rap battling scene worked. And the black guy, it's his turn to rap, and he's holding the mic up to his mouth, and he's about to speak, but he can't think of anything to say. And the reason why he can't think of anything to say is because Eminem took all of his ammunition and already used it. He already shot all the guy's bullets for him. The guy has no bullets left in the chamber, no bullets left in the clip. He has nothing left to shoot at Eminem, and he ends up not saying anything, loses the battle by default because he doesn't say anything, and Eminem wins. He becomes and that's where the story kind of ends, is that he gets a rap opportunity, and he's going to go off and do something to make something out of his life. What did Eminem do here? He pointed out all the strong points his opponent had before his opponent even got to use them, took all his ammunition away. This is what you need to do when you are in an argument with another person. All right, acknowledge their right to feel how they feel. Acknowledge the pieces of their position which you agree upon up front. Acknowledge, you know what, you're good at that. This is a good point. This right here is true. This right here is true. Acknowledge all those things. Don't give them any ammo to use against you. Take all their ammo off the table before they use it. This not only takes the bullets out of their chamber, it also builds credibility on your part because your audience can see that you're not just some blowhard pushing your own agenda, not willing to listen to what anybody else says, which is what most people do when they get in arguments. They just start pushing their own agenda, don't acknowledge anything the other person has to say positively, and it just becomes this clash. But a logical, reasonable person, when they're building an argument, can admit that the other person has some positive points. Nobody is all good. Nobody is all bad. No argument is just perfect, and there's nothing that you can criticize about it. And no argument is so terrible, there's nothing positive you can say about it. You must develop this skill, and this is all under the umbrella of your emotional control. Acknowledge the strong points of your opponent's argument. This right here, you just took this point alone and use this in your conversations with other people, especially when you disagree with another person. It would change the results you are getting in those conversations immensely on the spot. Point number 4, today's topic once again is how to formulate and present a logical, like an actual good argument, not just to go out there and throw things out like most people do. Number 4, lose the hyperbole. Do not use hyperbole when you are trying to present a logical, rational argument. Now, you can use hyperbole when you're trying to convince or you're preaching to acquire people who already agree with you. You can say anything because they're pretty much going to accept it because they already agree with you. But people who do not already agree with you, do not use hyperbole because it will be used against you. Let me give you a definition of what hyperbole is, just in case any of you don't know, because we are all guilty of it, some more than others, of using hyperbole when it should not be used. Definition: exaggerated statements or claims not meant to be taken literally. This is the challenge with hyperbole, is that you are exaggerating. You are making a claim that is not meant to be taken literally, but sometimes people throw hyperbole out there as if it is true and then defend it when somebody challenges it. Now, if you're using hyperbole strategically, then people should be able to read in your manner, in your speech, again, 90% of communication nonverbal, that you're being hyperbolic. But sometimes people use hyperbole without making it clear that it's hyperbole. They say it as if it's to be taken at face value. And the problem with that is, again, when you're talking to people who do not already agree with you, it hurts your credibility. It makes you sound like someone who will just say anything just to try to get your point across because you think everyone's just going to agree with anything that you say. But again, logical, rational people will hear the bullshit in your argument. They'll smell the bullshit. They'll point it out. And now people will put you into a box, or you're the type of person who will just say anything when you're trying to make your point. And now we know that we have to take what you say with a grain of salt. Now you don't have the same voice that you had before. I'll give you an example. Person we all know, LeBron James, basketball player. There was a situation where a black man was attacked and killed by 2 white men. These were not cops. This was in, I believe this was in late spring 2020. And LeBron posted a tweet that said, they are literally killing us every time we go outside. That was the effect of what he said. Every time he used the phrase, they killing us every time we go outside. He used those exact words. The problem with that is it's, first of all, not true, because I'm black, LeBron is black. Neither of us have been killed when we went outside, and both of us have been outside a whole lot of times. So we know that he's being hyperbolic. I understood when I read the tweet, I said, okay, he's saying that because he's emotional maybe in a moment. Maybe he wasn't emotional. Maybe he was just trying to stir people up. I don't know. I can't read the man's mind. I don't know LeBron James. But he was obviously trying to make a point that there are bad things happening to black people all the time. That was what he was trying to say. But with all the hyperbole, the challenge with LeBron saying something like this is that he has such a large audience, and a large audience of people who do not think, a large audience of people who are going to take what he says as face value because of his stature in the culture. And because he used this hyperbole, his detractors, the people who did not agree with him, the people who thought he might need to be a little bit more rational, a little bit more measured in this time, even though he was upset, they're looking at him like, okay, now we know who you are. You're a guy who's going to just say anything just to get your point across because you're emotional and you just want to make some type of impact. And it's cool to want to make an impact, but you want to be careful using hyperbole when you're talking about very serious things such as death. I don't think it gets more serious than somebody dying. You don't want to be too hyperbolic about that because people are going to use that against you. Now, if you're being hyperbolic about something being funny or somebody being dumb or something that can be taken a little bit more lightly, then hyperbole can work at different times. I think damn near any subject you can come up with can be taken more lightly than somebody getting killed. So he was utilizing the hyperbole, again, to emphasize his point. The challenge is undermine his message and undermine how serious other people could take him. Now, again, if you already agree with LeBron, then you're like, well, there's nothing wrong with it. But the challenge is everybody doesn't agree with everyone else. So when you're using hyperbole, the people who already are predisposed to not agree with you, now they have more ammo to not agree with you because they see your pattern. This made people look at him, myself one of them, as a person who would exaggerate things just so he can get attention, just so he can be heard, just to make sure people hear what he has to say. He would exaggerate things just to make sure his voice gets amplified. And again, on some topics, this can work. On some platforms, this will work perfectly for Mr. LeBron and others. On a serious topic, though, this is not a very good tactic. So if you ever make any kind of statements where you are generalizing a group of people, if you are saying they or us or all or every time, you got to be very careful with these generalizations because they are 99% of the time not true. When you say they, that means you're taking all of the people in that group and then you're about to say something that is supposedly applying to all of them. I'm 99% sure you're going to be incorrect. If you say us, that means you are speaking for the entire group of whatever group you claim to be a part of. I guarantee you there's some people in that group who do not agree with you. You do not speak for the entire group. So you need to be more specific when you are saying things like this. And some people hear me giving you these points and they say, well, Dre, this is kind of like you're mincing words and it's semantics and all these things. Well, listen, mincing words and semantics matter when you are making an argument, people. This is why I'm giving you these details to make sure you don't commit these faux pas, making these mistakes of hyperbole. And people who don't think about how they're building their arguments, they make these mistakes, especially when you're in a mental bubble of only hearing from and talking to people who agree with you already. You will think that everything you're saying is accurate because nobody's questioning you on it. And we're going to talk about that in a future masterclass coming up in a matter of days. So make sure you're not making generalized statements about groups of people of which you know not. Point number 5. Today's topic is how to formulate and present a logical argument. Number 5, make no assumptions and be clear about the assumptions that you do choose to make. Very important right here. Every assumption you make in an argument is a failure point in your argument's foundation. Because if your assumption is proven incorrect, everything built on top of that assumption comes crumbling down. Think about a tall building, 20-story, 50-story, 80-story building. The foundation of the building is the part underground that nobody ever sees, nobody knows about except the people who built it. Nobody ever really thinks about it unless the building falls down or the building gets torn down. Nobody will ever see the foundation ever again. The foundation of your argument is that every point that you are building upon can be proven as factual, believable evidence. If you make an assumption in an argument, you must be clear that you are making an assumption. Because if you make an assumption and your assumption is proven incorrect, then everything else that you said is now not credible. It is all discredited because your whole argument was built on an assumption that wasn't right. This is the problem with making assumptions, ladies and gentlemen. As the saying goes, when you make an assumption, you make an ass of you and me. Be careful about assuming things. Build your arguments, whenever you build one, build your arguments on things that you can prove, things that are evidential. You can show them, you can back them up. You have some example or some proof that says, okay, I'm saying this, here's why I'm saying it, here's the proof of what I'm saying. Because if you build your argument on too many assumptions, now either somebody's going to question you and tear your argument apart piece by piece based on your faulty assumptions, or a person is going to notice that you're making these assumptions, know that you have no credibility, and just choose to dismiss everything that you said mentally. They won't say anything to you, so you're going to feel like you're smart, but you're actually not. Or you're going to be talking to an audience of people who are too ignorant to realize that you're making a bunch of assumptions, and they're going to accept your argument and go spread it, even though it's based on faulty assumptions. And then they're going to go out into the world, and they're going to be the ones have to swallow the red pill because they're building off of your argument that was devoid of evidence to begin with. You're the one who caused that problem. So there's nothing good that comes out of building an argument on a whole bunch of assumptions that you cannot prove. Now, if you can prove it, then it's all good. But if you can't prove it, it's not true. If you have an assumption in your argument, point it out. Let people know. All right, this is the assumption that I'm making. I'm making the assumption that the dog barked because it saw a person or heard a noise that it wasn't used to hearing, or a person that it wasn't used to seeing. So I'm building my whole argument on why the dog was barking. You just need to let people know that's the assumption that you're making. But if you say the dog barked because it saw somebody I never saw before, that's an assumption that if you can't prove it, why would anybody want to listen to you? Why would anybody listen to anything else that you said? Understand, assumptions that are proven inaccurate discredits your whole argument. Good lawyers do this to witnesses every single day in court. Whenever a cross-examination happens, any of you ever watch a law TV show or an actual law proceeding, a cross-examination, when that lawyer gets up with that witness from the other side, the defendant's witness, let's say the prosecution against the defendant, prosecution's lawyer against the defendant's witness, they will look for ways to discredit that person's whole argument. They just look for one toehold, one thing that proves inaccurate that they said, that discredits everything else the person said. This is what we do to people. When we find one thing about a person that discredits, that we find one thing out about a person that proves that they are not completely truthful, or something is wrong with them, or some reason to cancel them, we discredit everything else about them. Even though that might be the only thing they ever did wrong, we discredit their whole thing just off of that. See what happened to Hillary Clinton in 2016. People found ways to discredit her credibility. They hurt her credibility, and it destroyed her whole campaign. Hillary Clinton may be a great person, but when people started to question her believability, they start questioning her truthfulness, they start questioning her overall credibility as a believable human being that can be trusted, her whole thing fell apart. And it might only have been one thing that she did wrong. It is fair game when you're in the game. That's what I want you to understand. Point number 6, today's topic is how to build a logical and rational argument. Back up your arguments with clear, believable evidence. That's what I'm talking about. You do not want to build your arguments on assumptions, and if you do, someone's going to call you out, and if they are not assumptions, you can prove it because you have clear, believable evidence to back up the things that you have said. Every single thing that you state in an argument, if you state it as a truth, it will be held up to the light. So you must help yourself by doing it yourself, holding your points up to the light. Hey, here's how I know this is true. Because of this, this, and this. I'm saying this. The reason I'm saying it is because of this, this, and this. Be able to back up everything that you claim with some evidence, or have it ready just in case somebody calls you out on it. When I said something like, when I say the Black Lives Matter movement is a democratic movement, it is a part of the democratic leftist agenda, I explain why. Because you got a person like LeBron James, who has been a mouthpiece for Black Lives Matter. He is pushing that people go vote. But LeBron James has campaigned hard for Barack Obama and for Hillary Clinton. When I say the NBA, by putting Black Lives Matter on their court and putting all this Black Lives Matter material in their stuff, they are pushing for a Democratic candidate to be voted for. They're pushing for voting, but then when you hear NBA players talk, the more you hear them talk, they eventually start trashing Donald Trump. LeBron James has trashed Donald Trump publicly. I've heard other NBA players do this. I've seen coaches trash Donald Trump. So they are all part of the NBA. The NBA seems to have a solid message. They're all in solidarity in their message. They're telling people to go vote. They don't say who to vote for, but when you let them keep talking, eventually it leaks out that they're anti-Trump. The NBA is pushing for a leftist agenda. I'm not saying that is wrong. All right, they can push for whatever they want. They want to tell people to vote for the Democrat, they can. But when I say Black Lives Matter equals Democrats, NBA equals Democrats, this is how I'm able to say it. I can give you proof that explains it. So make sure you have proof for the points that you are making. Again, you don't have to agree or disagree with them. You just got to be able to prove them. So when I say I don't care who wins the election because it doesn't really affect my day-to-day life, all right, that's exactly what's true in my life. But I also ask people a question. I tell other people, I say, name one thing Barack Obama did or that Donald Trump did that affected your everyday life. Most people cannot name one thing, even though they want to get mad at me for saying that. But can you name something? When I say it, nobody has ever pointed anything out to me that they can say has affected their day-to-day life with whoever the president was. Doesn't mean that voting for the president doesn't matter. Doesn't mean that that person does not play a role at all or doesn't have any effect on anything. But can you tell me something in your everyday life that was affected by the president? Most people cannot answer the question. Now, that is not me trying to tell you not to vote. That's not me telling you politics doesn't matter. That's me telling you why I don't want to. That's why I don't care about it. I may talk about it, but who wins and who loses doesn't really matter because I'm going to tell you right now, whoever wins or loses, I'm going to get a ton of mileage out of it when it comes to content. I don't care who wins. As long as somebody wins, I'm going to have plenty of things to talk about. So whatever happens. I'm going to be good either way. I'm pretty good at this. I'm a pro at this. So anyway, all that being said, make sure any claim that you make, you can back it up with some evidence that makes sense, that other people can understand. And again, make sure you're talking on their level, not on your level. They may not be as smart as you, so you got to be able to dumb it down so they can get it. Point number 7. Today's topic is how to build and present an airtight, logical, rational argument. Number 7, give your opposition an opening. Meaning, if you are in a persuasive frame of mind, meaning you are trying to change the mindset of at least a few people, maybe the person that you are talking to, you got to give them an opening to change their mind. If your argument is strong enough and solid enough, maybe your opposition will be open to saying, you know what, you got some good points. You know what, I think differently about this now that I've talked to you, now that I've heard what you had to say. Wouldn't everyone who ever gets into an argument want their opponent to say that? You want your opposition, your adversary to say, you know what, you got some good points. You know what, I changed my mind. I got a different opinion now that I talked to you. Has said by 99% of you have never, ever had anybody say that to you at the end of a conversation. You know why nobody ever says that to you? Because when you get into an argument with another person, you do not allow them space to change their mind because you do things that you should not do, such as attacking them personally, name calling that person, or any other juvenile, immature actions exemplified by many people who are supposed to be leaders, who think they have a great argument, who think they have an airtight point, who think that there's no way anybody could possibly have a different point than them, and you attack them so hard that you don't give them space to even change their mind because you've polarized them. All right, when you polarize people, they will never come around to your side no matter what you do, no matter how good you are, no matter how much proof you present. They will always find a reason to oppose you. All right, and this can work in some aspects. In some aspects of life, it can work to polarize people. I did a whole masterclass here about how to do rejection marketing. Rejection marketing was masterclass number, let me tell you what that was, number 1364. Getting rid of people, making sure you put things out there, let people know, look, this is not for you. Okay, rejection marketing can work in many aspects. Donald Trump is a great rejection marketer. He's rejected a whole lot of people, but at the same time he rejected people, he also attracted some other people. It can work for you in some areas, but when you are building an argument against another person or against an idea and you want to change somebody's mind, you're not just preaching to the choir, but you want to change some mind. You want to entice some people to come into the church. You got to give them the opening to come in. Do not demonize them for thinking differently from you. If you demonize another person, you will polarize them. They will always be against you no matter what you do, no matter what you say, because this is just the perversity of human beings. So ask yourself, are you trying to persuade people or are you just trying to antagonize them? If you're trying to persuade, give them an opening to change their mind. Let's recap today's class, which is how to formulate and present a logical argument. Number 1, keep it simple. Do not ask people to accept too many ideas. They're not smart enough to remember them all. All right, we don't have long memories. We got short memories. Keep it very simple and repeat the same simple points over and over and over again. That's how people remember them. What is Dre Baldwin's slogan? You know it. What is Nike's slogan? You know it. What is Donald Trump's slogan? You know it. What is Barack Obama's slogan? You know it. Why? Because it is simple, it is to the point, and they keep repeating it over and over and over again. Do not talk over people's heads. Use simple words. Do not Do not serve your vanity by showing off your eloquence and articulateness. Keep the words simple so that people can understand them. Point number 2, maintain emotional control. This is the failure point in many arguments because people get too heavily invested in the topic, especially when it is race, politics, or religion. When you're emotionally unhinged, people will use that against you. Maintain control. Number 3, acknowledge the strong points of your opponent. Here's where most arguments fall apart, especially by people who cannot control their emotions. Acknowledge what your opponent is good at or what points work in their favor. Well, this is what Eminem did in the final battle in 8 Mile. This is why he won. You build credibility by giving other people credit for their points, and now they don't have any ammo to shoot at you. Don't just be a blowhard pushing your own agenda. Point number 4, lose the hyperbole. Hyperbole is exaggerated statements not meant to be taken lightly, but people use them as if they are literal, and they're not. And when you're using hyperbole as if it is literal and accurate, people know that you have no credibility. Smart people notice that. Quiet people won't even tell you. Only dummies will accept it and believe you. But people know when you're using hyperbole and you sound stupid. They just might not want to tell you to your face. Make sure you're not making general blanket statements about any groups of people, even your own, because you don't speak for everybody. Point number 5, make no assumptions. Be clear about those that you do make. Every assumption made in an argument is a possible failure point in your argument's foundation. If that assumption is proven incorrect, your entire facade falls apart. The whole building comes crumbling down on top of you. This is how you can be discredited. This is what politicians do to each other every election cycle. They look for one thing to hurt the credibility of their opponent, and they just hammer that thing over and over and over again until their opponent has no credibility and therefore loses. Point number 6, back up your arguments with clear, believable evidence. Everything you say is a truth. Hold it up to the light and prove that it is the truth. If you cannot prove it, do not say it. It will be held against you if you're talking to a smart person. If you're talking to a dummy, you can get away with it. Point number 7, give the opposition an opening. Meaning, if you aim to persuade someone to change their mind, give them an opening to change their mind by not demonizing them, not personally attacking them, not name calling them, not calling them stupid for not having the same idea as you. Those things will cause people to polarize and never agree with you because you have pushed them to one extreme or another. Leave it open by following all the points that I've given you, and you give them an opening to change their mind. If you've never had anyone change their mind after a conversation with you, it is because you are committing an error in building your case. Work on your game. Dre all day.